Good evening, race fans, and welcome back to Season 18 of the Attrition Sim Race Campus Oval Series presented by SM Racing Products. Tonight, here for round number 7 of the season at the Stafford Motor Speedway up in the lovely Stafford Springs, Connecticut. Not the first time that ASRC has been to this track, but it has been a little while. Previous visits here were all the way back in early 2023 and late 2022. Previously won by Brian Zabelski, Travis Sukup, and Tyler McRae. Of course, not really a shocker in terms of the previous winners list here at this track. Zabelski seems to have somehow won at every track here on that the ASRC Oval Series has visited at some point or another in the last 5 years that it's been running. And Sukup and McRae, when they were competing here, were very dominant forces in the short track series that we were running at the time. Of course, Sabelski has gone winless so far here this season, so we'll just have to see if he'll be able to make things happen here tonight, because he is going to be starting off on the front row of tonight's event. But of course, coming in at 0.5 miles in length or 0.8 kilometers for those of you who use the metric system, just as flat as IRP was last week, but just a little bit shorter, and that's going to make it just that much more challenging. And of course, one of the oldest tracks here that we visited here in a pretty long while. Technically speaking, this track opened up all the way back in 1870 as a horse racing track. It wasn't until around the end of World War II that they started racing automobiles here, and believe it or not, the NASCAR Truck Series has never raced at this speedway either, so who knows? Maybe these drivers out here will make up for the fact that Stafford tried to get the real world NASCAR Truck Series to race here, and NASCAR said no. That's enough yapping for me, though. How about we take it down trackside and take a look down at our starting lineup here for today's event. Starting out on the pole here in the number 85 machine, that's going to be none other than Mr. Brian Sabelski, second in the championship point standings by only 3 points behind Garrett Hess. He's going to be starting off here on the front row here, and to his outside in the number 15 machine, it's not going to be the Garrett we've seen so dominant here this season. That's going to be none other than Garrett Street throwing it off in position number 2 in the SM Racing Products entry. Back in third, we have the 188 of Joshua Rudolph in that Skittles entry, the driver out of Medford, Wisconsin. Then back in fourth for, I believe, the first time this season where he's made an appearance but not qualified on the front row. It's going to be our championship points leader in the Project Avalon entry. That's going to be Garrett Hess. How about back in fifth? That is going to be one of our Canadian drivers, Mr. Michael Sparks, back there in the Moosehead Logger entry back in fifth, with league administrator Mr. Jason Gardner in the Goodwrench entry back in sixth. How about back in seventh, though? Speaking of our Canadian drivers, that's going to be Daniel Sparks back there in the number 4 Cheesy's entry. Then back in eighth, that's going to be the Save Our Seeds Foundation rookie driver here of Mr. Kevin Alicia. He's going to roll it off back in eighth. Back in ninth, though, that's going to be the number 11 Dirt TV entry driver out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. That's Johnny Bell back in ninth, with Derek Murphy in the number 78 Treehouse Brewing Company entry back in 10th. Then back in 11th in the 712 machine, that'll be John Atkins back there, with the 27 Sargento entry of Mark Kluge running at the tail end of the field here. Paceark's going to make the dive down to the safety of pit lane. We're getting ready to go. Green flag rolling here at Stafford. And green flag up in the air just like that. So far, so good as we head down into turn number 1. And looking like nothing too catastrophic here, at least quite yet. We seem to have gotten lap 1 in the books without too much difficulty, as we are 2 by 2 all the way around further on back, but it's going to be Brian Zabelski leading the field over Garrett Streets to complete lap number 1. You can see just how small this track is, how hard these drivers are having to just slam on the brakes to make these corners. And you can see really variance in lines here as well, as Joshua Rudolph trying to go all the way down to the apron here to make the inside line work. Other drivers keeping it way up, almost all the way up to the outside wall here, some right in the middle. For the time being, drivers are slowly single filing things out, and right now trying to just get into a rhythm, get some green flag laps going here. And it's going to be Brian Zabelski still continuing to lead the field here for the time being. Current fastest lap of the race, though, was set by our driver back in third in that Project Avalon number 12 machine. That is Garrett Hess, a 20.55 to his name. Right now, everyone else in the 20.5 to 20.6 range. So we'll see if Garrett can't make his way up to the front here. He managed to get around Joshua Rudolph here in the early goings of things, but passing is going to be difficult at this tiny little track. And we've seen so far, things have gotten single filed out pretty quickly here. Now it's just kind of a guessing game, waiting for another driver to make a mistake to really capitalize and make a move here. And that might prove difficult for a lot of these drivers, because there is a good deal of consistency out of these drivers here in the ASRC Oval Series. We do have one driver down on pit lane, and it sounds like Michael Sparks might have had an issue here. So let's take a quick look back and see what happened to him in that Moosehead entry. And just a little bit of a spin on down into the infield grass, and oh, That is not so light of a spin as I thought. That is a blown motor for Michael Sparks. That might just be his race over just like that. The caution flag did not come out for that incident, but sure enough, that is catastrophic damage to the number 42 driver there. That might just be his race over with, and only 4 laps completed to his name. Otherwise, looking around the field, it's pretty much all single file here, as everyone gets into a bit of a rhythm and just hitting their marks. There will, of course, always be pit stops to consider, and with how well these drivers are running so far, they might just actually end up being green flag pit stops, and this is a tricky track to make your stops on here. So we'll just have to see how things manage to shake out for these drivers once we get into the later stage of this race, but right now, these drivers are keeping it clean, keeping it green, clicking off laps every 20 seconds here. So if they keep this thing green, this is going to go by pretty darn quickly. Probably maybe 30 minutes, maybe even not quite that. We'll have to see here. One driver down on the bottom of the raceway, though. That is Daniel Sparks making a move on Joshua Rudolph down to the inside, and it looks like he's going to make it work there down on that apron. That'll get Daniel Sparks up to 4th, and he is now currently the most improved driver on the speedway so far. Only up +3 from where he qualified, but that is the most gain we've seen out of any other driver here for the time being. Second best is all the way back in 9th with John Atkins back there running alongside the 78 of Derek Murphy in that battle for the 9th position. Right now, the closest drivers on the speedway are our 3 front runners here. Sabelski, Streets, and Hess all neck and neck with each other. A little bit of a scrape against the wall there for Hess there. But these are our 3 closest drivers by a pretty considerable margin here, all keeping each other right under a bubble here. And you see just how close it is. Roughly about 0.2 of a second between each of them, and then it's a almost a full second back from Hess all the way back to Daniel Sparks back and forth. So our 3 lead drivers are really just breaking away from the field here. Sparks not out of the question entirely. He is making some ground back up here, but still a decent ways out. He does start to make his way into the picture for the battle box here, but even then we will just have to see 15 laps in the books as we cross the line this time by. Still in the early goings of this one, and it is anyone's game here up at the front. Of course, you have to worry about tire management too. Will these front runners burn their tires off? And maybe we'll see some of these mid-pack drivers be able to close the gap back down, get back up here, and start to be competitive for the win. Or is it all just going to come down to consistency and eventually pit stop time? Getting ready now, already closing in on the 20 lap mark just like that. And again, we're only 5 minutes into tonight's race here, which is just going to show how quickly these drivers are clicking off these laps. And Sabelski, Streets, and Hess are all just looking very equally matched with each other. Look at the lap times last time by. Sabelski was the slowest of the 3. A 20.7 for Sabelski, a 20.64 for Hess, and a 20.59 for Hess, excuse me. Has now crossing the line, getting updated times here. Identical times between Sabelski and Hess. Both drivers a 20.59. Streets just barely behind a 20.61. So these drivers up here at the front really are just completely equally matched with each other here. At least for the time being. We'll see how these tires hold up for them once we get later into the run. But right now, everyone is just right on par with each other in terms of speed. A little bit further back, Daniel Sparks at 20.67 here. Now coming across the line for 20 laps officially in the books, just like that. And so far, it's been pretty quiet all around the field here. You can see how spread out things are starting to get as everyone kind of tries to find their pace, find their rhythm here. There are some drivers closing up on each other a bit back here in the mid-pack. As we have a couple of drivers off the track, that looks like John Atkins is around. Mark Kluge is down on the infield grass as well. Green flag is still in the air as Mark tries to bring that truck back up onto the raceway, keeps it down to the apron, into the grass, trying to stay out of the way of the race leaders here. Green flag still up in the air for the time being. And Kluge is going to be able to get back up onto the raceway. It does look like John Atkins also took the tow down to pit lane here. And it looks like Kluge is a bit off the pace. Let's take a look back, see what happened here between these drivers. Take a look back. Oh, John Atkins hard on the outside wall, comes down and kind of just collects Kluge there. It looks like Kluge going to be bringing it down to pit lane now. Over the front, Sabelski still leading the field here for the time being over Streets and Hess. It's still just as equally matched as we have seen it be so far all night here tonight. It really could be anyone's game out of these three, but right now, Sabelski's still holding on strong. Really, the only other battle in the field right now is kind of that battle just a bit further back with Jason Gardner all over the back of Joshua Rudolph here. Trying to make the move. He might be able to get the nose in there. No, not quite able to. He thought about it, but not quite close enough. And honestly, that little attempt actually caused him to lose a little bit of ground here, as he is now fallen back to about 3/4 tenths of a second between himself and Rudolph. But Rudolph running that higher line is just kind of begging Gardner to try and stick the nose in there, try and make something work here. But right now it's just looking like that 93 can't quite make it work. Take a look on board here with Jason Gardner. Of course, I say that, and he manages to make the pass happen. Jason Gardner finding himself up in the 5th position now. Joshua Rudolph is back in 6th, getting put on the offensive here as he tries to figure out how to get that spot back. But again, just running that higher line doesn't seem to quite be working for him. Kind of taking an awkward corner there, more of like a diamond shape, sort of. It seems like what he's doing. Just behind, though, Kevin Alessia, he might be able to capitalize here on this and make some ground back up. But right now, Kevin kind of having just a quiet evening back here in the 7th position in that number 7 machine. Rookie driver here this season, coming into tonight's event, being scored back in the 11th position in the championship standings. Just 3 points behind John Atkins and another 4 points behind Corey Logan from there. And Corey we have not seen here so far tonight, and I don't believe we saw in the previous race either. So Kevin might be able to make some positions up in the championship standings here in tonight's event, depending on how things play out for him. Right now, running back in the 7th position. How about back in 8th, though? That's the number 11 of Johnny Bell in that Dirt TV entry. Johnny is running, looks like actually just behind Kevin Alessia. So Johnny is 5 points back from Kevin, back in 12th in the championship standings right now. So he's also potentially looking to gain a spot over Corey Logan, depending on how tonight's event goes. And knowing Johnny is probably trying some sort of fuel or pit strategy here that's off sequence from the rest of the drivers, because that seems to just be how Johnny operates. Whatever the other drivers are doing, he makes a point of not doing that. Sometimes it works out for him, sometimes it blows up in flames, but definitely a driver we need to keep an eye on, because we might just see him pull a fast one down on pit lane and work his way further up in the field. We have a driver off the track, though. That is Garrett Hess. spinning around down in the infield grass, trying to hang on to it, and he does. But he has been moved all the way back to the 7th position now, and having some issues getting that truck back up to speed there. I'll take a quick look back at this here and see what happened to him. And just a spin on corner entry. Looks like no help there. Or on, yeah, kind of corner entry, kind of mid-corner. Gets it back on the asphalt and then slides around even more on him. That's going to bump him all the way back down to the 7th position. But again, despite all these instances going on here, the race is still under green. The caution flag has not been thrown for any of these mishaps. So that's definitely going to be very costly for our championship points leader. And I'll tell you what, Brian Savelski is probably grinning like a madman right now, as, dare I say, his biggest rival, his biggest adversary of the last 2 seasons is now a whole 6 positions back from him. Call that about a whole 10 seconds, which doesn't sound like a lot, but that's a whole half a speedway away from Brian Savelski. And he has a full 1.4 second lead over the rest of the field, so he's just kind of rolling now. Just has to be patient, hope the caution flag doesn't go out, and he can build this lead up even further. Speaking of battles here, Kevin Alessia trying to make the move on Joshua Rudolph. We were talking about that a little bit ago, how Rudolph was running that higher line and kind of leaving the door open on the inside for drivers to get past him. Well, it looks like Kevin Alessia is going to do just that. Kevin now up inside the top 5, +3 from where he qualified. And now the closest battle we have on the speedway has grown to about 0.5 of a second. Joshua Rudolph sends it in deep down there into turn number 1, and it doesn't look like it quite works out for him there. He's going to fall back to about 0.75 of a second behind Kevin Alessia, and this is the closest battle on the speedway. This is the only battle on the speedway within a second of each other here. You can take a look down at where everyone's running down on the track map, and you can see things have gotten pretty decently spread out around the field here. As you take a look at things, you can see just how the field is kind of breaking apart from each other here. As Kevin now off the track down in the infield grass, he brings it back up, but he is going to forfeit the position to Joshua Rudolph and may very well forfeit the position to Garrett Hess here as well, but we will have to see. Garrett's definitely going to try and capitalize on that little mistake, because he has closed the gap up considerably here between the two of them. And especially with those now way overheated and kind of dirty tires, that 7 is going to be having handling issues here for the next couple of laps. And Garrett Hess is hot on his tail in that number 12 machine. But still, despite that, not quite close enough to actually make the pass happen here yet, but he is gaining last time by a 21.3 for Kevin Alessia, a 21.25 for Garrett Hess. But those speeds are a little concerning, because up at the front, Brian Savelski just did a 20.95. Right now it looks like Savelski is the only driver still running laps in the sub 21 second range. What a run by the driver of that number 85 machine. As we still keep the cameras focused down here on this battle for 5th back through 7th. Joshua Rudolph, Kevin Alessia, Garrett Hess, all under a blanket with each other here. Only about 0.3 of a second between each truck, and we'll see how the lap times shake up this time by, but things are getting mighty close here between these 3. Looks like it's going to be a 21.18 for Rudolph, a 21.08 for Alessia, and a 21.11 for Garrett Hess. So Alessia, the fastest of the 3 drivers in this bunch right now. And as the reader comes across the line next time around, going to be halfway through tonight's event in only 17 minutes. No caution flags so far. Couple of hiccups for some of these drivers. Murphy, Clue, Jack, and Sparks all way down on laps here. Whoa, watch out there. Almost contact between Alicia and Rudolph as he sends it in mighty deep there. That might be the opportunity that Garrett Hess needed. Thinking about making a move down the inside, but not quite going to be able to do it. But Alicia also trying to take a peek down the inside at the same time. Things are getting mighty tight here between these three drivers. Alicia on the bottom, Hess and Rudolph up on the top. But it's so hard to build up the momentum to get a run here. You can see all three of these drivers are trying different lines. They're peeking noses in places to try and figure out a way to make a move happen, and it's not working out for these three. Oh, but we might have a little mistake out of Alicia. Hess now down, not quite to the inside. Thought about sticking his noses, and it looks like he's going to use the force there. That's going to cause Alicia to make a bit of a mistake. That'll allow Hess to get up to 6th. Now is the question, can he bust back into the top 5, get back to Joshua Rudolph here? Coming across the line, a 21.16 for Rudolph, a 21.11 for Hess, and then a 21.64 for Alicia, who of course had that issue going down to turn number 1. Now he's going to have to backpedal a little bit, see if he can't go on the offensive. That said, it did almost look like Hess might have gotten a little bit loose there coming out of turn number 4. It might have just been the camera angle, but it seemed like there might have been the tiniest little bit of a slide for that 12 machine, so might be a bit sketchy under the hood of that 12 machine. Might not quite have it handling how he wants it to. I mean, of course, he had that spin earlier, which was very uncharacteristic of what we've seen out of him, so obviously he's not super happy with how the truck's handling, but he is going to get down to the inside of Joshua Rudolph and make the move to get up inside the top 5 here. And while Rudolph stuck up high, Alicia is just behind, looking to see if he can't get in on this opportunity here as well. Try and file on down to the inside and get around that 188, but just not quite close enough to make it happen. So that'll still keep Alicia back in 7th. He had a taste of the top 5 here, but wasn't able to hang on to it. Now he's trying to make the move on the 188 once again. He's got the nose to the inside there, so he should be good here down in turns 1 and 2 to make it happen, but no, not quite. Gets a little bit too hard on the brakes. He's going to lose some ground there. But Rudolph's still running that high line, and it's still just not quite working out for him here. And neck and neck going down into turn number 1. But it looks like Alicia is going to have a bit of the advantage there. And just like that, he moves himself up to 6th. Rudolph still keeping it within about 0.3 of a second, but that might not be enough here. I say that, now make it 0.2 of a second, and now 0.4 of a second, just like that. And that just goes to show how even the tiniest little bit of a twitch of the wheel, slightly different driving inputs, can make such a big impact on lap times here, especially at a track as small and as tight as this one is. Speaking of lap times, though, Johnny Bell has officially been the first driver to go down a lap on pace here. Still haven't had anyone come down pit lane for regularly scheduled pit stops yet, though, so very possible that we will see pit stops coming up here soon, or maybe these drivers will try and fuel save all the way to the end. We will just have to see here. I mean, at a track as small as this one, they might be able to make it work, but I'm not super positive on that one. Now, while we take a moment, let's go through the field here, see how things are going. As never mind, hold on, we have a driver off the track here. Jason Gardner is around down on the, where is that? Is that turn, looks like turn 2 here. And again, no caution flag. He does manage to get it rolling here again, but That's going to bump Jason Gardner a lap down just like that as well. Let's take a look back and see what happened to him here. And it looks like the same general story we've seen all night here tonight, just drivers losing it on corner entry or corner exit. But he gets it rolling, gets it pointed in the right direction, and we are still green flag racing for the time being. As now Johnny Bell and Jason Gardner are both fighting themselves a lap down. Closest battle on the speedway is still between Hess, Alessia, and Rudolph. All of each about 7 to 8 tenths of a second away from each other, so really not all that close of a battle. But these are the three closest trucks on the speedway right now as we officially get through 2/3 of tonight's event. Going to be 33 laps to go here as Sabelski crosses the line. And let's talk about Sabelski here for a minute, leading the race with a 5.6 second lead in that Maconi setup shop entry. Has been winless for a pretty long while now, but right now having a pretty solid showing here this evening. And like I said, I mean, right now Sabelski is just hoping that the race goes green all the way through, because with every single lap we are doing, he is building that lead even further over the rest of the field. Started out on the pole, he's led every single lap so far here tonight. Back in second, Mr. Garrett Streets here, running in second, trying to get around that 93 car. That is not for position. That is a lap traffic there that he's trying to get around. Another driver started up on the front row, started in second, running where he qualified here in that SM Racing Products entry. Of course, Garrett Streets is the S in SM Racing Products. He is one of the founding members of that organization. And of course, we got to extend a big thanks over to the folks at SM Racing Products for being on board here with the ASRC Oval Series. It's been the title sponsor of the series for, it feels like a couple of years now, honestly. It's kind of hard to keep track, but it has been a very long time now. And they have been a wonderful group of folks to cooperate here with. It's always great to see them out here competing in the league as well. But of course, for those of you who are interested in sim racing gear, button boxes, and all the likes, be sure to check out SM Racing Products on all their various social medias and on their website. They put together some pretty darn cool products, and many of our drivers here can attest to the quality of what they've put together, because several of these drivers have won their products through championships and other means here, including Brian Sabelski, I believe. Sabelski was the champion, I think, in the very first season that SM Racing Products sponsored the series. So definitely great to have them on board. Great to see Streets out here on the raceway. He's run up in second. Back in third in that Cheesy's entry, that is Mr. Daniel Sparks, who is up +4 from where he qualified here tonight. Having a pretty quiet evening in a bit of a bubble here. 6 seconds ahead to Garrett Streets, almost 3 seconds back to Garrett Hess. So really exactly where he wants to be right now. Nothing to worry about but to settle in and keep on clicking off these laps here. He comes into tonight's event back in third in the championship point standings, 15 points behind Brian Sabelski, which means he's 18 points behind Garrett Hess. A potential championship hopeful here this season, running up inside the top 3. Of course, back in fourth year, Garrett Hess, who was battling for the lead earlier in tonight's event, fell all the way back down to 8th with a spin earlier on into tonight's event. He's slowly clawed his way back up to 4th. But without a caution flag, it's going to be very difficult to catch up to these race leaders, because right now Brian Sabelski has built up a 18-second lead over Garrett Hess right now. And making 18 seconds up in 25 laps, that's going to be very difficult, especially since, uh-oh, never mind, I lied, we have trouble. He's up in the outside wall. He hangs on to it. Heck of a save by that 12 machine, but that is not doing him any favors on potentially getting back up to the race lead, especially since our race leader of Brian Sabelski is just behind and may very well be putting Kelvin Alessia and Garrett Hess a lap down here in the next lap or two. He did also just put Joshua Rudolph a lap down here now as well in that 188 machine. So Sabelski definitely being the class of the field here tonight. What a show he has put on in that 85 machine. He's going to go down to the inside. Alessia keeps it up high. But of course, not quite able to clear him yet. There he goes. Now Kevin Alessia has officially been put a lap down. Curious to see if Garrett Hess lets Cebulski go by quite as easily. Of course, these two have been rivals for multiple seasons now. But sure enough, with that rear end damage, Hess says, you know what? It ain't worth battling for it. He's just going to go ahead and let Cebulski go on by. So that will now put Garrett Hess a lap down. We have a driver off the track. That is Mark Kluge, who is now backwards on pit lane. Looks like he's had a little bit of a spin of his own, and he's not quite sure how he wants to get it brought back around here. Of course, the caution flag will not fly for this because, of course, he is on pit lane. Unfortunately, he's probably going to get hit with an unsafe pit entry penalty, if I had to guess here. Let's take a look back, see what the deal is. Probably going to be the same thing we've seen all the other times here tonight, and sure enough, gets loose out of 4, and surprise, he's on pit lane now. And it looks like he's still on pit lane. I think I was right about him probably getting that unsafe pit entry penalty. But hey, there's a battle going on here. Garrett Hess and Joshua Rudolph duking it out here with 19 laps left to go. This is a battle for position. No, they are not on the lead lap, but that does not make their race any less significant in the championship point standings. Of course, 4th or 5th place finish doesn't matter if you're on the lead lap or not. It's still a 4th or 5th place finish, so that is a big deal for these drivers. And of course, should the caution flag come out, there is always the option of these drivers getting the lucky dog here as well, potentially getting put back on the lead lap. Might have a chance to keep going here in tonight's event. Well, you know, since we're talking about these two drivers back here, we were going through the field and talking about how everyone was doing. Joshua Rudolph not quite having the evening he was hoping for. Started up in 3rd, now running back in 6th, a lap down here in that Skittles entry. Still inside the top 10, almost breaking into the top 5 here. And with this battle here with Garrett Hess, he might potentially be able to get back up inside the top 5, but not quite having the evening he was hoping for in that 188 machine. He's going to come into tonight's event being scored back in the 7th position in the championship standings, 2 points behind Derek Murphy. Then back in 7th right now, that's going to be the 11 of Johnny Bell. Another driver having more or less a quiet night here this evening. I thought he was playing maybe the big pit strategy game here tonight, but it looks like nobody's going to bother coming down pit lane, so maybe just not quite the evening for Johnny Bell here as he runs back in the 7th position, but he has gained 2 positions just through other drivers making mistakes here. So all in all, it's a positive here for the driver of the number 11 machine. So you know what? Why not? How about just behind him, though? That is League Administrator Mr. Jason Gardner, who has also lost positions here tonight and is actually in a battle for position with Johnny Bell right now. So 2 league admins duking it out for 7th and 8th right now in the championship point standings. Neither of these drivers are anywhere near the potential lucky dog position here, but battle for points nonetheless. Coming into tonight's event, Johnny Bell is being scored back in the 12th position in the championship standings, and Jason Gardner back in 4th in the championship standings. So quite a bit of a disparity there. Not quite the evening Jason Gardner wants to be having for his potential run in the championship. Before we go further back in the field, going to keep it here on this battle at least for a little bit, because this is a pretty close battle between these two drivers here. And it's equally as close a little bit further up ahead as Rudolph is trying to make the move back on Garrett Hess here, trying to figure out how to get around that championship leader. And they're making contact with each other. They're spinning. 10 laps left to go. Hess is in the infield grass and getting it rolling again. Green flag still up in the air. That's going to bump Garrett Hess all the way back down to 8th now. Definitely not where our championship points leader wants to be running, especially when the point standings, it's only 3 points separating himself and Brian Cebulski, who is beating him by a whole 7 positions now. A little bit further up, we still have this battle between Johnny Bell and Jason Gardner for the 6th position here. Johnny's going to go a little bit high. Jason tries to peek the nose down inside, not quite able to. By the way, there's only 2 drivers still left on the lead lap here. That's our race leader, Brian Zabelski, and our second place driver, and our second place starter of Garrett Streets. Everyone else in the field has officially gone 1 lap down here tonight. So really, for a lot of these drivers, the caution flag wouldn't make all that much of a difference. Daniel Sparks right now would be the lucky dog driver, so he'd be put back on the lead lap. He'd be able to battle for the race lead. Everyone else would still be trapped a lap down right now and kind of just out of luck. Unless we had just multiple repeat cautions and just had overtime after overtime, then we could see some of these drivers potentially get back up on the lead lap. But right now, it's looking like it's just going to be Sabelski and Streets taking home the checkered flag on lap number 100. Coming up to the front here with 6 laps left to go. How about we ride on board with Sabelski here for a lap or 2 and get an idea of what these drivers have been having to put up with here for the last 95 laps. Honestly, just a Sunday drive here for Sabelski, as he really has nothing to worry about here in these final 3 laps. He has a full 12-second lead over the rest of the field, and with 2 laps left to go, really, he just has to make another half of a mile without anyone crashing and bringing out the caution flag, and he will be smooth sailing to his first win of the season. And through turns 3 and 4, everything seems a-okay. White flag gonna be up in the air, and just like that, it doesn't matter now. Unless Brian Sabelski somehow manages to crash it here in this next half a mile, he will be our race leader for the first time here this season. And I think this will be his first race win with ASRC in 2025 as a whole. Coming across the start-finish line, Brian Sabelski is going to be your winner here tonight. How about back in second, Garrett Streets here, a whole pretty much half a speedway behind. He's going to bring it home back in second as the only other driver on the lead lap here this evening. But Brian Sabelski, he finally gets it done after just run after run after run with horrendous luck turning his way. Finally, he manages to make things work out here and take home a race win in 2025 after being a 4-time champion throughout the last couple of years. And as he burns it down, he's going to bring it around the speedway for his Polish victory lap like he always does when he manages to make it work out. And I'll tell you what, work it out he did in a very dominant fashion here tonight. Led every single lap here at Stafford. That said, though, don't go anywhere, race fans. We will be back here in just a minute with some words with your top 3 finishers once they get themselves all back on down to pit lane. Alrighty, race fans, welcome back to the Stafford Motor Speedway. 100 laps of green flag racing here in the books tonight, and all 100 laps going to go to the driver out of Denver, Colorado, Mr. Brian Savelski. How are you feeling here tonight?
Well, I've had a very, very bad day today, and this certainly helps out a little bit. But yeah, it does feel nice to kind of get one back from you know the past couple weeks haven't been as rough as they have been in the league. So hey, you get one back every once in a while, and tonight was that night.
Sure enough, if I'm not mistaken, I think this is your first win in ASRC in 2025. And coming
Yep.
into tonight's event, you were only 3 points behind Garrett Hess, who has already used his drop week. So that will make you the championship points leader coming out of tonight's event.
Well, he'll still be close. I mean, I got a drop week. I know it's coming up because I'll be out of town, so that'll even out with Garrett. But it's uh, it's that's gonna be a close one. I think to the end. He's a really good racer, and there's probably definitely some tracks that are coming up that will be favorable to him. So yeah, looking forward to it.
Sure enough. And of course, I mentioned coming into tonight's event, you are the only active driver in the league that has a win here at this speedway. So were you feeling confident coming into tonight's event that this might finally be the track where you break your winless streak?
Yep. I think after IRP last week and the show that we put on there, I think that was we're going to another pretty flat track the next week. I think uh, that gave me a lot of confidence that I could do this. Knowing that this league is not like officials, which I ran strong in officials, but I got run over by somebody who is using it as a play session more than actually as a race. So yeah, I thought I had a good shot here if I could keep the car under me for 100 laps, not burn the tires up, and sure enough, did it.
Sure enough, definitely a incredible performance by here tonight, lapping almost the entirety of the field here. Do you think that if a late race caution had come out, would that have thrown you off at all?
After last week, I don't think so. I kind of learned my lesson about the tires and all that, when that happened. So I would have gone in, and I assume most of the other people would have gone in as well. I don't think anyone's going to stay out with the level of tire wear that was going on. But yeah.
Well, fair enough. It finally worked out for you here tonight, and you are now our championship points leader. You said it yourself, it's going to be pretty dang tight between you and Garrett here for the rest of the season. But how are you feeling about heading on over to Kansas next week?
Pretty good. Kansas is a fun track. We just raced there in another league, and I did pretty well. So I think we'll hopefully have a good week next week.
Good deal. Definitely sounds like something to be looking forward to. Of course, you finally got the win to your name, so I won't keep you here all night because I know you got celebrating to do. But for now, the microphone is all yours, Mr. Sabelski. You want to thank for making everything happen.
Thank you so much to folks at Maconi Setup Shop, official setup shop at NASCAR, um, for being supportive of me, and of course, folks at SM Racing Products. I said SK because I'm looking at chat and they're talking about SK modifieds here. So SM Racing Products, awesome button boxes. You know, Garrett just ran P2. He got with on one of those, and I just ran P1 on one of those. So check them out. Um, you for doing the broadcasting, Nathan. Jason for doing all the admin work for ASRC, and that's about it.
Good deal. Well, thank you for coming out here tonight. Congratulations on finally getting that win, and I hope to see this momentum continue for you over into Kansas next week.
Thank you.
And finishing back here in position number 2, it's none other than Mr. Garrett Streets, one half of the SM Racing Products crew himself. Garrett, how are you feeling here tonight?
Oh, feeling pretty good. Did not expect to have this much speed this evening. This is not my type of track that I normally look forward to going to. So yeah, really happy to come out with a good point tonight. And yeah, overall pretty impressed with our run and got a fast Chevrolet Silverado.
Yeah, certainly a very solid run for you here tonight. Seemed like you were pretty much up in the podium for every single lap here this evening. At what point here tonight did you feel confident that things would finally work out for you?
Yeah, I think pretty early on, we kind of had a three truck breakaway there with Brian, Garrett, and myself, and I felt like our chances were pretty good of maintaining a podium and getting some good points. It was unfortunate that Garrett got loose or got caught up in whatever happened back there and wasn't able to be up there competing with us. But yeah, especially then, I felt pretty good about holding on to P2.
I guess I do got to ask the same question here that I asked Mr. Sabelski, but do you think a late race caution would have thrown things off for you at all?
Uh, I think that it would have been positive, probably. I don't know that I would have had anything to battle with Brian, but I think my chances for potentially stealing the win would have been better if we had a caution around lap 75 or later. I think I had better, or not better, but comparable pace on fresh tires, but Brian was just so much faster over the course of the run and definitely the fastest truck won this evening.
Yeah, definitely a heck of a run here tonight put on by both of you. Of course, coming into tonight's event, you're being scored back in fifth in the championship standings, right up together with Jason Gardner and Daniel Sparks. So you might be gaining a little bit ground here in the championship point standings. Do you feel like you might be able to compete for the championship in this season?
I'm hoping so. It's gonna still have a little bit of a deficit to catch up here. I don't know exactly where we're gonna fall, but maybe this will put us in third place in the standings. Um, with the bonus point, I think we got the fastest lap tonight. But yeah, looking at the schedule, really looking forward to going to Kansas. That's my home track. Usually run pretty well there. Very familiar with it and absolutely love racing the mile and a half. And just the rest of the schedule more lines up with my style and what I like to run more than the early half of the season.
Good deal. Well, it sounds to me like we have an awful lot to be looking forward to out of you. But of course, for tonight, I won't keep you here all evening. You got a podium finish to go and celebrate. So the microphone is all yours, Mr. Streets. Who you want to thank for making things happen here tonight?
Yeah, first of all, I want to thank Jason for all the work that he does, admin and ASRC and putting everything together. I want to thank you for your help with that and for putting together another excellent broadcast. I enjoy watching those, and it's always great to go watch the next day and see how the race ran down and see what you can find out. I want to thank all the great guys that come out here and compete every week in ASRC. It's a good group, and if anyone out there is looking for a league to join, we'd love to have you. And I want to thank everyone that supports SM Racing products. If you're in the market for any hardware or need any custom solutions, give us a holler and we'll be happy to help.
Good deal. Well, thank you for coming out here tonight, and I look forward to seeing you at your home track next week.
All right, thank you, Aiden. We'll see you then.
And finishing back here in position number 3, up plus 4 spots from where he qualified, it's going to be none other than Mr. Daniel Sparks. Daniel, how are you feeling here tonight?
Feeling really good. Just ran a super consistent race and just got really lucky with Hess spinning.
Yeah, coming in here tonight, seemed like you were a little up and down throughout the field, but walking away with a podium is always a pretty huge deal. Of course, you're also one of the drivers up inside the top 5 in the championship point standing, so a podium is just going to be putting you that much closer to contesting the championship. How are you feeling about your outlook for the rest of the season?
I think a championship is maybe a little bit far-fetched, but I would like to hold my third place. I think that's good to aim for.
Fair enough. That definitely seems like a pretty solid plan. Of course, coming into tonight's event, did you think you'd be walking away with a podium?
Not really. I hadn't run any laps at this track until Friday or Saturday when I practiced it, and then I was just very uncertain about the pace of everybody else, so I wasn't too optimistic about how I would run, but very happy with how I finished.
Yeah, it certainly seemed to work out for you here tonight, getting a podium to your name, keeping you up near the lead of the championship point standings. And next week, heading on over to the Kansas Speedway. How are you feeling about your odds on a 1.5 mile track?
Uncertain. I seem to burn my tires off at Kansas. It's a very interesting track, but if I can just keep my tires under me, I think I can do pretty good.
Fair enough. I definitely look forward to seeing what you're going to be able to do over there and how you do for the rest of the season and potentially see you up in the podium or maybe even a championship. Do you think with any of these couple of tracks left before the end of the season, do you think you might be able to take home a win here this season?
I'm hoping I could take a third win this season. Um, I think maybe Kansas, Talladega are probably the best tracks, and maybe like north of Wilkesboro.
Good deal. Those definitely seem like good odds to me. And with all these wins to your name, I mean, I think personally that it's possible for you. But I don't want to jinx it, so ignore what I'm saying.
Thank you, thank you.
Regardless, though, you got a podium to your name, so you got celebrating to do. I won't keep you here all night. The microphone is all yours, Mr. Sparks. Who you want to thank for making everything happen?
Gotta thank Team Mooselanders, my dad, and you for broadcasting, and Jason Gardner for holding the league, and everybody who came out here tonight to race and put on some good racing.
Good deal. Well, thank you for coming out here tonight. Congratulations on the podium, and I look forward to seeing you next week at Kansas.
Awesome. Thank you. You have a good night.
You heard it here first, folks. Your top three finishers here tonight: Mr. Brian Sabelski, Garrett Streets, and Daniel Sparks here this evening. But of course, those weren't your only three drivers here tonight, so how about we take a look down at our race results as they run. Of course, unofficial, but it's kind of the same deal as always. I really don't think that anyone will be getting any penalties here this evening. So they look down at results. Of course, Sabelski, Streets, and Daniel Sparks, your top three here tonight. But it's going to be Kevin Alicia back and forth for what I believe is his first top five here in ASRC. It's going to be Joshua Rudolph in the 188 rounding out the top five here this evening. Back in six, it'll be the number 11 of Mr. Johnny Bell with Jason Gardner in the 93. Back in seventh, that'll be Garrett Hess back in 8th, the worst finish here so far this season that our championship points leader has gotten. Then back in 9th, it'll be Derek Murphy with Mark Kluge rounding out the top 10. Then for the tail end of the field, back in 11th, we have John Atkins in the 712 and Michael Sparks in the 42, rounding out the tail end of this 12-car field. That said, that's just about all we've got here this evening at the Stafford Motor Speedway. Of course, like we said, next week, going to be heading over to Kansas Speedway at a little bit of a bigger track than this one, and one that actually has a little bit of banking, which I know a lot of these drivers are going to be celebrating. So it is bound to be a fun one. But for now, thank you all for tuning in, and I look forward